Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Tech Showdown. My name is Kevin, this is my co-host Teddy, and today we're going to be checking out keyboard from the guys over at EpicGear, and this is the Defiant. So if you haven't watched my unboxing of this, I suggest you go over and watch that first, because this thing has quite a few add-ons. It came in a really nice case, and it's probably just good to watch that, because I'm going to skip over some of that stuff and get straight to the review of this keyboard, or else it would go on forever. So yeah, this is the Defiant, so it's a mechanical gaming keyboard. We'll start straight out with the design then. So currently it has the add-ons, these side bits. Orange are one of the add-ons. It's also coming with a magnetic wrist rest, which is quite cool as well, although it was a little bit on the short side. Your sort of wrist barely sort of sits on it, but it's still good. I still used it. It was still nice. Now, the keyboard itself has this aluminium top on it. That looks really nice. It's all black and minimalistic, so you know you could probably get away with using this in an office without looking too hardcore or anything like that. Around the back, it's just plastic with their standard, EpicGear logo right across the back on it. It has got stands there as well. You don't have to use these orange clip-on ones on the side. However, they are quite good because you can adjust them up and down, sort of raise it up and down as you like it. So that's quite a cool feature. It also has the keys set up nice and high, kind of like a Corsair K70. So that's also quite a cool feature with it. I quite like that. And yeah, it's just looks-wise, I think it's quite minimalistic. It is pretty basic, which may not be to some people's taste out there, but personally I think it looks really good, and I think this would go with any sort of theme you might have with your peripherals or your rig or anything like that. So that's also quite a good thing about it. However, what about the switches? That's sort of a main thing when it comes to a mechanical keyboard. So this is coming with 3 of their own switch types. These are the EG switches. So there is the EG Grey, which is like a cherry red basically. The EG Orange, which is basically like a cherry brown. And the EG Purple, which is basically like a cherry blue. And the purple is what this keyboard is coming with. However, these are interchangeable, so you can switch out the entire key switch to different ones if you want to. So I got all 3 switches and I was trying them all out. Now, I don't know who actually manufactures these, but they feel similar to Kale, so I'll put it that way. They're quite similar, to me anyways, to a Kale switch. So that's just something to keep in mind. So yeah, you can switch them out. It is a bit fiddly. It requires quite a bit of force. It is a cool concept, but yeah, it can be a bit of fun to actually switch them out. So there's that. As far as the switches themselves go, the purple switch I thought was just fine. It reminds me of, a clicky Kale switch, like something you would find on a Poseidon Z or something like that. But yeah, it was decent, I'll put it that way. The other switches I thought also did a pretty good job. I mean, they're not as good as a cherry switch, but hey, nothing really gets that close to them at the end of the day. But they were decent. They're good enough to get you by, I'll put it that way. So that was quite cool. Layout wise, it's all pretty standard. There's no macros or anything like that over on the left hand side. The one thing I would say is a little bit different with it is it has the volume scroll wheel up on the top right, and you can click that to mute as well, so that's quite cool, and it's metal, so it feels quite nice also, but a little bit loose, but yeah, still quite cool. So that's about the only thing. As far as noise goes, well, I'll let you guys judge for yourself. So first we'll do the EG Purple, then we'll do the EG Orange, and then last we'll do the EG Grey, and you guys can see how they sound. So yeah, that just gives you an idea there of the different sound between them all. Obviously, the purple, being that it's tactile and clicky, is going to be quite loud, whereas the orange is tactile and non-clicky, so it's going to be more quiet. And then, of course, the EG Grey is a linear switch like a Cherry Red, so it'll be very quiet by comparison to the other two. So that just gives you an idea there. But yeah, for gaming, for typing on and stuff, yeah, it does a decent enough job to get you by. Now, lighting-wise, so this keyboard is quite unique. Not only that it has the interchangeable switches, but it also has these interchangeable light bars. So they switch out on their switches themselves, so it's sort of like a manual RGB, so to speak. So by standard, it just comes with the white LEDs, shining straight through, or clear if you want to put it that way. But then you can put colors on, like I've put a few on here to highlight a few different things. Again, this is pretty fiddly and a bit of fun to change them out. But once you do, the result is pretty good. I mean, this is okay. Obviously, you just prefer RGB LEDs, so then you can just change it in software nice and easily, no mucking around. However, for the cost of this, which we'll get to a bit later, you can also see why they might have gone this direction with it. So yeah, it does a decent job. But the lighting in general, I would say, is just okay. It's definitely not bad, but it's not the best either. Obviously, with how they have to mount the LEDs, because the switches obviously switch out, it means it's never going to be the brightest in the world, but it does a decent enough job. I will put it that way. Now, as far as features go, so this is the first mechanical keyboard I've ever tested that pretty much requires, I'll reiterate that again, requires a firmware update in order to work properly. When I first got this out and started using it, I thought there was something broken with it because the in-key rollover just wasn't working as well. It's supposed to have 10-key rollover, and it just wasn't. Like, I had to type super, super slow, or else I was having all kinds of problems. However, I did a firmware update through their software, and it completely alleviated the issue. So, make sure you do that straight away if you're having a problem similar to that. The software does everything you would need it to do. Obviously, there's not much lighting adjustability when it comes to this, so it just will handle all the macros and all that type of thing, firmware updates, all of that. I would say it looks extremely basic. It sort of seems like they just got a few interns to just throw something together, and that was kind of like the result. But again, it serves its purpose and it does it decently, so that's also quite good. Which brings us now to the conclusion, and what do I make of the EpicGear Defiant? So obviously you've heard me say it does a decent job in a lot of areas, and that's basically how I would put this. It does a decent job all round, but it doesn't do anything exceptionally well. However, it doesn't do anything exceptionally bad either. But when we bring price into consideration, and it's currently 139 Australian dollars on PLE computers, which works out to be about 105 US dollars, that is extremely cheap for a mechanical gaming keyboard, especially one of this build quality. So that's a really, really good deal. And then it all starts to make sense when you consider the price this is coming in at. Wow, that is actually a pretty good deal with what you're getting with this keyboard. So the design is solid, especially that you're getting aluminium plate on the top for a keyboard this cheap. That's pretty impressive. The key switches are decent, and so is the layout. These are no Cherry MX switches, but they do a pretty good job for the price you're paying for this keyboard. Switching them out though is pretty fiddly, and yeah, it's not the most fun thing, so it's not something you're going to really do that often. Hopefully you'll probably just do it a bit when you first get it, switch out the light bars the way you want, and then just leave it at that. However, the lighting itself is okay. It does an alright job. Once you get some colors thrown in there, it'll liven it up a little bit, or you could just leave it with standard and the white still looks quite good, contrasting to the black of this keyboard. So for the price, yeah, it does decent. I mean, obviously, if they went with RGB LEDs, that would raise the price a bit more when you consider how much a fully RGB mechanical keyboard costs by comparison to this. It sort of makes you understand why they went with this more like manual RGB type approach. But yeah, it does a pretty cool job, and it's also quite good if you have a key switch that say breaks. You can then just switch out the switch itself. It's no huge issue there. And also, if you're a person that wants to run different switches for different keys for whatever reason that may be, for maybe a specific game or something like that, you can easily do that with it too. So it is quite a cool concept. So do I recommend the Defiant? Yes, I do, for the price. If you're just wanting a cheap, good mechanical keyboard that'll get you by, sure, why not? It does everything it needs to do. But make sure you do that firmware update straight away, or else you may run into a few problems. Now, I thank you all for watching this video. Please subscribe to Tech Showdown if you haven't already, and like the video. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.